Okay, today we're going to be talking about nonverbal communication, presented to you by Michael Alarcon, Mariah Aviles, Brianna Flores, and Atsuya Harai. So how is nonverbal communication defined? Nonverbal communication is communication which does not utilize the spoken language. So this is things such as gestures, facial expressions, and even body language. However, this may also include components of speech, such as tone and pitch. So today we'll talk a little bit about the differences in nonverbal and verbal communication, as well as the types of nonverbal communication, such as vocalics, proxemics, and haptics, as well as kinesics. So first, we will learn a little bit about the differences in nonverbal and verbal communication.
Okay, so the first thing I would like to talk about is the characteristics of each communications. Verbal communication is auditory communication with words, or mostly face-to-face or written use of language. And on the other hand, nonverbal communication is wordless, which is conveyed as visual cues, including body language, gestures, facial expressions, touch, and so on. According to our website, differences between verbal and nonverbal communication, by Lumen Learning, there are 4,000 facial expressions that we can make with 20 different muscles in the face. And because there are big differences between two communications, the possibility of having confusions between the sender and the receiver is different. In verbal communication, each word has its own meaning and there are fewer chances of confusions. However, in nonverbal communication, there are more chances of misunderstanding in communication because the use of language is not done. And there are so many types of nonverbal communications that sometimes can be understood in a wrong way or in a different meaning. And the last topic is about consciousness. Verbal communication is used consciously, which means that we think about our verbal communication before we communicate. It is impossible not to think before we speak. But the nonverbal communication is delivered unconsciously in most cases. It is transmitted without thinking about every nonverbal message we communicate. For example, like when something funny happens, we do not think like, okay, I'm gonna smile and laugh because it's funny. Instead, we show our reactions unconsciously through all different ways of nonverbal behaviors like laughing and smiling, using these all different types of nonverbal expressions.
So now that we've learned about the differences between nonverbal and verbal communication, we will dive into the types of nonverbal communication, starting with vocalics, proxemics, and haptics.
The voice is thought to have preceded formal language as a means of communication and has been retained throughout evolution for its communicative function. An infant begins to communicate with vocal cues long before words appear, and a reliance on vocalics as a communication channel continues throughout life. Think of our voice as an instrument of communication. We use pitch variation, inflection, loudness, emphasis, tempo, pauses, and voice coloring to emphasize words and contradict words, and send independent messages by sighing, pausing, or even laughing. Voices are also so unique that we each have a voice print that could rival a thumbprint for identification purposes. Even in communication with other species, animals use their own voice to try to communicate with us, such as a pet dog barking to let his or her owner know something. Vocalics is the most instinctual form of communication. But no aspect of the human experience, however, is more central than interpersonally sharing space and touch. Proxemics includes personal space, fixed or semi-fixed space, objects or material space, density, crowding, and body orientation, which is the angle we use during interpersonal interaction. Haptics includes instrumental behavior used during the care or service of other people, nurturant behaviors such as holding and cuddling, immediacy behaviors such as handshakes and pats, and sexual behaviors such as stroking and embracing. Proxemics and haptics are both crucial to the communication of power and control and is used during influence attempts. Both these behaviors communicate information about our culture, personality, sexuality, privacy, and social influence.
So now that we've learned about the differences between nonverbal communication and the different types of nonverbal communication, we will finish up with kinesics.
Kinesics refers to the study of hand, arm, body, and face movement. Kinesics focuses on 4 major types of movements, such as gestures, head movement and posture, eye contact, and facial expressions. Gestures are a way of communicating meaning without words. Common gestures we use are waving, pointing, and the peace sign. We use waving to say hi or goodbye, pointing to get someone's attention, and the peace sign, which indicates peace or victory. In other countries, the peace sign symbolizes something different. It symbolizes that you're acting like an animal in Great Britain, Australia, or South Africa. Head movement and posture involves the majority of our bodies, such as the head, body, and feet. Head movement is universal in meaning, so a simple head nod is universal of acknowledgement. Postures can have powerful meanings, such as if you're slouching or distancing yourself from a speaker, this can indicate that you aren't listening and the message is unimportant. And if you're crossing your arms, this can indicate that you're closed off. Eye contact. The dilation and constriction of the pupil is sometimes an indicator of interest, attention, and involvement. So for example, if you see your favorite person, your eyes will dilate. We maintain eye contact when being honest, and we lose eye contact when being dishonest. Our eyes express our true feelings. And lastly, facial expressions. Facial expressions function as regulatory gestures, providing feedback and managing the flow and interaction. They recognize our state of emotions, such as being sad or happy. So if you see somebody with a frown or a smile on their face, this will indicate that they're either happy or sad.
So in closing, we've learned a little bit about nonverbal communication and the fact that it uses multiple channels simultaneously. It is continuous, it is both conscious and unconscious, and some of it is universally understood according to Lumen Learning. Hope you all learned a little bit about nonverbal communication and will pay attention to your nonverbal cues when you're communicating. Thank you.